From the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Howdy, y'all. We are coming to you from down south. Or, wait, is that the wrong south, Mike?
That's definitely the wrong south.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, we're South Jersey. We're not southern United States. We're not Arkansas and Texas.
But we're always in South Jersey.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Pete Sanchez, a little confused. We are down south here near the southern tip of the state. We're in Cape May County.
We are in Cape May County. We're not only are we in Cape May County, we're in the city of Cape May. We
are. This is
finally getting the shore tour that you've been asking for months.
I know. It's just a blessed, and the rain held off on the drive down a little bit. There was a little sprinkles, but not too much.
Yeah, but any day you're going to the shore is a good day.
Yeah, and who sang on the way to Cape May? That's been on my
I'm not
head
answering any of those questions.
No, we're not doing a little music trivia.
Nah, we're good.
I don't even know. I
met the guy. I know who it is, and his name is escaping me at the moment. Maybe it'll come up later in the podcast. It'll pop back up into my head, but we'll touch on that later. I'm sure we'll make a few more Cape May references while we're recording.
Yeah, well, for any listeners, yeah,
I'm sure the listeners are really going, idiots. It's this person's name. I can't believe you don't remember.
Probably so many people have recorded it though.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That's the thing. So it could be one person for one. It could be another person for another.
Weren't we in Wisconsin or Green Bay? I guess we were in Green Bay. Didn't someone tell us that they were thinking that song had popped into their head? We were in the...
Yeah, the Knights of Columbus.
Yeah.
A guy that we took the shuttle from the airport to the hotel with.
Yeah, not from this area, but for whatever reason had that song in his head. And now people will be listening to this podcast and going, man, you idiots, now I have that song in my head, which is why I'm not going to sing it.
Send all complaints to Tom O'Shea
at CamdenDiocese.org, of course.
So, Mike, well, first off, we have some exciting news bits. We've been talking about this a lot. We can't talk about it enough. The Mass for the Assumption and Wedding of the See in Atlantic City, Wednesday, August 15th. Our Bishop, Dennis Sullivan, is celebrating noon Mass in celebration of the Feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. And after Mass, he'll be leading a procession of the Blessed Mother and benediction on the boardwalk, and the wedding of the ceremony on the beach, and where he will toss a wreath into the ocean.
That's right. And, this isn't any little Mass either. The Atlantic City Mass is enormous. Thousands of people come to it.
Yeah.
It is a great thing to see. It's a great thing to be a part of. It's one of the things, having joined the diocese professionally recently, I have the pleasure of having to go to it every year, and it is outstanding. I love it. My anniversary is the night before, and, it's difficult for me to juggle anniversary and the Wedding of the Sea feast day and the Wedding of the Sea the day of. However, I do my best to make sure I get to the Wedding of the Sea ceremonies because they're so great. And if it's your anniversary, bring your wife.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate. My friend Father John Thomas is pastor at that parish St. Monica, where right after the Wedding of the Sea festivities at the Boardwalk Hall and on the beach, there'll be St. Michael's Festival. With a lot of different vendors. There'll be food, entertainment. There'll be air-conditioned seating and outside seating. So, but Mike, if you need any recommendations for where to eat, I've been to AC visiting my friend, and we hit the spots. As a general rule, I only eat on the boardwalk in any of the shore communities I go to. It's very rare that I ever go inland off the boardwalk. I just like boardwalk junk food. I don't come to the shore as often as I'd like, so when I get the chance, it's boardwalk food. Okay. Well, the pizza, I did have the pizza right across from the old, I guess now it's the Resorts Casino. Mm-hmm. Right across from that is not a bad pizza spot. Oh. So good to know. Yeah. So, and just to talk a little more fully about the Wedding of the Sea, it is the big celebration is in Atlantic City the day of. The night before, Bishop Sullivan and the seminarians will be in Wildwood. doing their Wedding of the Sea for the vigil. And then each of the communities down the shore, they tend to have their own Wedding of the Sea ceremonies as well. So by all means, check your local listings to see if someplace in your area is having a Wedding of the Sea ceremony.
Yeah, and I think that will be on the CamdenDiocese.org website.
Sure.
Point those. So come on out to one in Atlantic City, or look for your other shore communities. And sticking in Atlantic City, Mike, there's a Light the Fire event. I'm very excited about this. The Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal are having a Light the Fire night of faith and evangelization. It's really neat. There will be adoration, there's confession, and also going out into the streets of Atlantic City to invite people to pray with them. So come on out, and that's going to be the first Fridays of August and September, August 3rd and September 7th. Mm-hmm. So and both nights start at 6:15 and end at about 9 p.m.
And we will definitely be at the August event. So come down and see Pete and I.
Yeah, and for more information, it's on the website, but call the sisters at 609-343-1545.
Absolutely.
And then, Mike, we have a really neat pilgrimage announcement. I think is this breaking news? We just found out about this.
I'm not sure. Which pilgrimage are we talking about?
The pilgrimage to
Rome
for
Rome
canonizations, October 11th through the 15th, with Father Robert Hughes, the Vicar General of the Diocese, and the Paul VI High School community. You're going to witness two canonizations, Mike.
That's right.
You're gonna watch saints being made by Pope Francis. Well,
saints being recognized. They've been saints for years.
I shouldn't say. Yeah. God makes saints. The Pope recognizes them. The Church recognizes them. To witness canonization of Blessed Pope Paul VI and Blessed Archbishop Oscar Romero. So come on out. That's going to be October 11th through the 15th. And for more information, go to...
Oh, did you lose one of your pages? Well, you can always go to CamdenDiocese.org to find all of our events, all of our interesting tidbits, and all of it's also on social media. And that one in particular, you can also go to the website at Paul VI High School to find out more information in addition to.
Well, the official website I found it is www.pilgrimages.com/FRHUGHES or /Father Hughes.
Yeah.
For more info or to register. And Mike, I have to give an apology to our listeners before I go any further.
What'd you do?
I think it's important because, as we'll get to it, we're talking about art on the show. And one of the pieces of art is Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien. And I messed up one of the characters, the Hobbit's names, a few weeks ago.
On a podcast?
Yeah. I called him Merry Took.
Yeah.
That's not his name. And I'm surprised we didn't get angry Tolkien fans.
Oh, okay. Well, his name is Mary. It's not Took.
Mary's name is Meriadoc Brandy Buck. Mm-hmm. And the Took is Peregrine or Pippin Took. So I'm just pulling out my nerd card right now.
Did Tom O'Shea alert you to this error?
No, I actually remembered it.
Oh, okay.
Which is probably even weirder that it came back to me where I said, no, his name's not Mary Tuck. So I apologize to the Tolkien estate and to the fans of Lord of the Rings. That's, to me, one of the greatest pieces of art. But, of course, we're going to be talking about...
Are you talking about the movies or the literature?
Both. Well, The literature especially, and the books, too. The literature is the book. So the literature especially, and the movies too.
Okay.
So, but Mike, speaking of art, who do we have with us?
The reason we're down in Cape May is because the South Jersey Catholic schools have come together to initiate the first art exhibition of our student artwork that we've had in the diocese in many, many years. And our friends here at Our Lady Star of the Sea Church were thrilled to open up their space to showcase all this great artwork. And we decided that for the podcast, we'd come down. There's going to be an open house this evening. So a couple of the resident art teachers are with us this evening. And let's have them introduce themselves. To my right is...
Hello, I'm Dave Sipple from Gloucester Catholic High School. Hello, I'm Grace Hoffner, and I'm from St. Mary's Regional School in Vineland.
Thank you very much for joining us. You're, I think, our first artist we've had on the podcast, so thank you for that. And in a radio form like this, art should really just leap out into people's ears. Wow, man, I really butchered that sentence. That was good. Nice job, Mike.
Art leaping out of ears?
Into ears. I don't know.
That sounds like a Salvador Dali thing, Mike.
That you're absolutely right. Maybe we'll get into that later. So the Catholic schools actually have a long history with art. I mean, for generations, and it's not often something that's thought about when considering a Catholic school for your children. But I've had the pleasure of working with Dave for a year when we were both teachers at Gloucester Catholic, and I saw the impact he had. We actually shared a little bit of space, shared a wall for a long time at Gloucester Catholic, and I don't know, it's something that really came more into form after I graduated. I have no recollection of ever having an art class other than being taught how to color in the lines when I was 2 years old. So my son, who's at St. Michael's and has a great art teacher by the name of Miss Generelli, she's really been pushing the boundaries with them, both during the school year and even in the summertime. She's running a camp during the summer. And so they've been doing all sorts of art projects, including making their own movies using iPhones and iPads. So I'm thinking, man, these kids are already so far ahead of me. So I'm curious, as art teachers, how easy is it for you to bring art into the Catholic school experience?
Well, it is pretty easy because the students are innately talented. I've never seen so many talented students, so it's easy to bring it out of them. First day of school, you give them a sketchbook, and they think they're an artist already, and they carry it around all through school, and they're proud of it. And the other teachers let me know that they're doing sketches in their classrooms. So it goes both ways.
What about you, Grace?
I just think that, the kids that I teach, they're younger, they're middle school. And I have a partner that I work with who prepares them. She teaches all of the elementary school. By the time I get them, these kids are pretty well-rounded. They have a basic understanding of who the artists are. They have a basic understanding of style. So I think that's really important, and it kind of elevates their awareness of the world around them. That's kind of what we do, is to make them appreciate and keep a balance in everything. So I think it's really important.
And Dave, I'm curious about both of you, the age ranges. So Dave, you do freshman through senior?
I just started getting freshmen the last 2 years. I only have freshmen for 1 quarter. And I'm busy with juniors and seniors.
Okay, so is a freshman is a requirement?
No.
No, so it's an elective all the way?
Yes.
Oh, and what about you, Grace? What?
Well, I teach grades 5 through 8, and it is a requirement. In middle school and in elementary school, it is a requirement. So when you're teaching, entire classes of art, you want to make sure that every child in some way or another is enjoying what they're doing. So you have to look at the projects, and you have to find ways to pull in everybody. And sometimes it can be difficult, but for the most part, I think we really, we are successful in that field.
One of the things I remember, I went to Queen of Heaven School, Catholic school in Cherry Hill, and one of the things I remember, I don't remember what grade it was, but I remember the pointillism and the cubism. Mm-hmm. I remember doing those. I think I don't know how I remember this, but I did a tree in the pointillism, and I forget what I did in cubism. And is that is that still the norm? Is it that
it's funny that you mentioned pointillism, because at the end of the school year, I always ask my classes, we do a review. And I always say to them, what did you like this year? What didn't you particularly like? And what do you think you want to do next year? Because it helps me with build my curriculum for the following year. And one of my students said to me, Mrs. Hoffner, can we please do pointillism next year? So that's a part of the curriculum. But yeah, that is something, Georgia Surratt is someone that we would teach. I have taught him in the past, and Cubism, Picasso, absolutely. Kids have to see it all and try to learn it all.
And what's the? I remember. I think in high school too, Dave. I remember with me. I think I did like I forget what they call it now. I basically got a block and carved into. I forget not mosaic. Help me out. Is it you're etching kind of into it with like an?
I don't give that assignment. Yeah.
Okay.
Working on linoleum.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And
no.
like wood cuts. So
I don't think it was wood cutting. It was more carving into.
No, they work on linoleum and you make a print out of it.
Okay.
So I don't have that assignment though. But going back to pointillism, I offer that to my freshmen, and they only have one semester, and they fall in love with that also. And I had one student this year take first place in the state of New Jersey in an art contest with her pointillism piece.
Really?
So she carried on for you.
That's and how is it with the students that you have with the elective, Dave, and even with you, Grace? Is it something? If you see a student who has talent, what do you tell them? How do you?
Well,
how do you draw it out of them?
What I usually do the first day of school is, especially with the fifth grade, because that's the first time that I'm going to have them, and so I try to find some level that we can communicate on. So we kind of talk about, what their summer was like and things. You get them into a mood where they're not afraid to be with you. That's the most important thing. And you, not that you make the whole class personal, but at some point you have to do that. You have to bring in the personal part of it because it puts them in a really positive place. And then my 6th and 7th and 8th grade, because they know who I am and they've worked with me before, again, I will still ask them how their summer went. Did they do anything different? Were there places that they had visited? Because this is all part of their imagination, and it's going to help them. It's going to help them with their art skills. Getting back to my 5th grade, once they realize, and I try to tell them, that there are no mistakes in art. And that's the big thing with kids today. They're so afraid of making a mistake. And I tell them, it's just, there are no mistakes. Some of my biggest mistakes were my best accomplishments at the end. So that's what I did. That's how I started off.
It's nice to hear you say that because I jokingly mentioned that my only art experience in school was grade school and learning how to color within the lines. And now we know it nowadays that coloring within the lines is not necessarily the best way to become an artist because it restricts you. Whereas over the last 30 years, I've been a photographer. Some of the best photographs I've ever taken were accidental. It was a matter of being in the right place at the right time. But I actually just ran across one from 25 years ago that I was trying to take a nice moon shot, actually not far from here in Wildwood. It was in the wintertime. It was early December, and I'm just trying to get a good moon shot. And so I took 30 shots, and of course at that time it was still film. So I send them off. I get them made up. I'm looking at them, flipping, throwing them, and every one of them is wrong. Every one of them is wrong. And I changed settings, but the last two, I didn't change the settings. The first one was terrible. It was just like the color things were right. Now, I made no changes, keep in mind. Flip to the last one. It was this beautiful, the moon had turned into a star shot. It had an incredible reflection down the middle of the ocean. I don't know if I accidentally hit a setting or what, but the only thing I did was show up at the right time and point my camera in the right direction, and there was this beautiful piece, and I ended up submitting it for a few things, and it won a couple of awards, and I was very, very proud of that. But it got me to learning that, okay, I don't know if it's luck, the Holy Spirit, but there's more to art than just knowing what needs to be there.
Well,
right?
Mike, you said the magic word, a mistake. There's something in art called happy mistakes, and Jackson Pollock would never become Jackson Pollock if he didn't drip paint on the canvas and say, aha, and the light bulb went off, and then he started dripping paint on canvases that he laid on the floor, and the rest is all history.
That's right. Which you can see in the Pollock movie, and I recommend.
Yeah, a great movie.
It is a great movie.
Sad at the end, but great movie.
Yeah.
Well, happy mistakes as opposed to happy little trees. I guess. Like
we got a little Bob Ross in.
Yeah,
very nice, Pete.
Well, Grace, I want to touch on
happy trees. That's totally
Happy
different.
Yes.
yeah, exactly. No, of course.
Mistake, yes.
It just seemed like something he'd probably say. I don't know. But Jackson Pollock, that's Grace, you touched on something that
I'm just going back to Pete. You put Jackson Pollock and Bob Ross in the same sentence. I don't think that's ever happened before. Well done, sir.
well, Grace, getting back to something you talked about, because I'm not I can't draw or paint. I write, but one of the things that I latched on what you said is imagination.
Right.
And I don't know, Dave. Maybe you see this. Maybe you see this too, because in this culture today, at least it seems to me, there's a lot of noise, and individuals are scared to be bored. They always have to have a phone with them. They always have to be talking to somebody. Always have to have Netflix on. It's either Netflix, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And sometimes I think it's great to be bored, to foster that imagination. And has that been a challenge? How can you create kind of that silence to really fertilize something in the mind?
Well, in my class, my kids know that when I'm speaking and when I'm teaching, they have to listen. Silence is important. And when they're working, a lot of times I'll put them in with other kids, so they're feeding off of each other. So you're going to have that noise level. But when they actually start to create and put it all together, it's amazing to listen to the classroom, because the noise level will come down. Because that's the time I think that they're coming, they're getting into themselves and into the idea. And on their own, they just become quiet and very, very focused. And I think that's so important. That's why, as far as I'm concerned, art is for me, it's a release. It's an outlet. It's a time when I can, reach into myself. And this is what I try to teach my children. I think it's really important because, as you said, we live in a very noisy, high energy, constant movement society. And kids need that downtime. And I think that this is where they get it.
To go back to your words, if you ever look at the Book of Kells, I've been lucky enough to say it over in London. And that's a book that goes way back. And it's all handwritten by monks and all hand painted. And you want to see beautiful artwork, they're masterpieces. The Book of Kells. It's in Ireland, yes.
Yeah. How do you spell that?
You got to Google it.
Kells.
Okay, I've never even heard of that.
I've seen it too. It's at Trinity College. It tours around from time to time, but and actually, as a matter of fact, they just they took high-res photographs of every single page, and they've just put it up online, so you can actually see the entire book online and digitally move the pages.
It was actually stolen by thieves back in the day, and they couldn't read, so they threw the book into a bog, and they kept the case, the golden case that it was in, and luckily we recovered the Book of Kells, and now it's safe in a museum. So.
And far more valuable than the gold case that it was taken out of. It's one of the most valuable books in the world.
Yes.
Matter of fact.
Okay.
Because the art is so incredible.
I have my seniors do illuminated manuscripts.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
So they get calligraphy in, and then they put artwork all around it. So
there's another thing I was never successful at, was calligraphy. I tried when I was in high school. My parents I think my grandparents gave me a calligraphy set. I tried 3 times and just like, nope, not for me.
You gotta do
Don't
more
have to.
than 3.
I've heard that. I've heard that. Also why my language skills are terrible. As I try to improve on my French and Spanish. I'm curious. Going back to the concept of needing needing to get out of the noise. In some ways, depending on your perspective, in today's day and age, there's so many new opportunities to create art because of all those devices you were talking about. And now a lot of it's faked because, or depending on what your word for use of the word fake is, but there are all these apps you can do to alter your photographs or change things. Or the iPhone, it has one setting just to take spectacular portraits of yourself or others, and they do a great job. But I look at them as a photographer and go, yeah, I know how to do that. I just need a $2,000 camera to do it. And now there's a $1,000 iPhone that'll do it for anybody. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, as you've both been doing this for a number of years now. Have you seen technology come into the art world a little bit more frequently?
Yes, and in my classes, although the school sometimes frowns on it, I let my students listen to music while they're creating art. I listen to music when I'm creating art. Leonardo da Vinci had an orchestra playing classical music while he was painting. So you have younger children, so they need to listen to you. But with the older students, it helps them. So they get in their happy place and they can create whatever they want, as long as they listen to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a series of CDs that are called the Mozart Theory, I think it is, and it heightens their creativity as they listen to it. So a lot of times I'll put that on, and it's funny because it's not like they realize that it's playing. But I know it's working. I know it's working just because of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a positive.
And I would say, too, as a writer, that kind of music, there's a good radio station, classical music, that I put on if I'm writing, or some instrumental. There's some other progressive rock that I like that's just, and it's conducive. And so tracing your paths to where you are now, how did I'll start with Grace. How did you get to where you are now in terms with teaching art? Where did that start?
Well, my uncle was a commercial artist, and when he and my aunt married, they lived with my grandparents, and his studio was in the basement of their home. So I think at the age of 2, he handed me a pencil, and just like a child would do, I would just play, and he would help me out, and it heightened my interest, in the art world. So I was always exposed to that. I was always exposed to classical music. I was really fortunate that way. And then eventually, I went on and got my degree. I was in theater for a long, long time. And designing costumes for theater and so on and so forth, which is a big art thing. And then finally, I was asked if I would be interested in teaching in elementary school, and I did. And I saw that there was a great need for art in these elementary schools. These kids were really getting nothing. It was like it was when I was in Catholic school. Art was not taken seriously. It was kind of to fill a need or fill the time. Today, art is a need. It has to be there. It has to be present. You can see all over the country, schools that pull the art programs out of their schools fail because these children need this. There's so much of the art that goes into your math, goes into science. And we're lucky at St. Mary's because we just had a Streamlab put in. Mm-hmm. So now we're crossing the aisle, and we are working with the sciences, which is so great. Even the school play ties in with the science and the art. There's a real great level as far as what's going on there. So that's my thing. I just feel that art is a necessary thing in the schools. Children need it. They need to understand the world that they live in, and they need to understand all the gifts that God has given them. Mm-hmm. They have to understand the world around him. The greatest artist is God. They have to understand that. So, and I think through art they do. I think they learn that. I really do.
I would agree with that.
And as far as I go, I was born with a gift, and I have always said it was from up above. I always give credit to God for my gift. My children have grown up sitting on my lap working on my paintings, my professional paintings. So they all have that gift too. But I guess it would still be through God. I know it is. And I was showing professionally in Soho in New York City when I got offered the job at Gloucester Catholic to teach. And I needed the benefits because you don't always sell paintings all that fast. And took the job and continued showing in New York until they want 15 to 20 paintings a year. And that can't compete with the workload of being a Catholic school teacher. So.
Yeah.
So, but I also do work for a lot of other places.
And you've been commissioned a couple of times for artwork.
I'm commissioned every year. I do portraits for the Philadelphia Eagles. My degree's I'm an MFA in illustration, even though I fell in love with painting. So the illustration side, I do portraits for the Philadelphia Eagles and some of the Phillies. I've done over 60 ball players and done well with that. And I paint acrylic landscapes. I paint Cape May a lot, and I paint Jersey Shore, Jersey farm scenes, and Pennsylvania farm scenes, Lancaster. So, and that's what I always sold in the galleries. So,
as a matter of fact, one of my claims to fame is I have a Sipple in my home, which
you do
is
have a Sipple.
I do. I have a painting. I have a Sipple painting. I also have several prints of this of the Sipple portfolio that are sitting up there. As a matter of fact, we gave one of them, which is this beautiful photo painting of Lower Manhattan when the Twin Towers were still up there. We gave that to my grandfather as a birthday present, and when he passed away, my grandmother said, "I think he would want you to have that." So that's sitting up there, and then I have the Cape May painting from. He brought up his MFA. One of my other claims of fame is I got to help him write his master's thesis.
That's true.
I did the editing of his master's thesis, which was great.
Because I can't spell.
Yeah, but I still think it benefited me more because it was all about marketing and what Budweiser did in its point of sale pieces way back in the 1800s. And I'm still using the stuff that I learned from reading that master's thesis when I'm explaining to people why it's important to have the right kind of tchotchkes when you want to give something away at your booth or table or something like that.
And that came about watching Super Bowl and the Budweiser commercials in the Super Bowl, how they were always rated number one.
Yeah, that stuff isn't accidental.
And took it all the way back and found out that Adolphus Bush used art to get his products off the ground.
Matter of fact, when we
was successful,
we walked into the hall here. Dave immediately noticed one of the old Pepsi-Cola signs from back in the 40s or 50s on one of the refrigerators here. So you still have an eye for that stuff.
I'm a collector, yes. Yes.
But no, I mean it's true though that just getting back to STREAM and art being all around us, for anyone who doesn't know what STREAM is, it's science, technology, engineering, and math. It's STEM, and then in Catholic schools we've added the R and the A to turn it into STREAM with religion and art. And I mentioned this earlier. It's one of the happiest things that my son, who thankfully is a much better artist than I am, wants to do it and loves drawing and loves to make things, and he's getting into using the iPad to take photographs, which makes me very, very happy. But at the same time, him being a 10-year-old boy, and I remember me in my late teen years, we used to make videos all the time, parody type of videos, which are all art, but it's a lot of pushing the boundaries. How is it as an art teacher and people, particularly you, Dave, someone who really understands art and understands how important it is to push barriers, when as maybe the young kids, instead of staying on task, they decide to make something really weird and funny as opposed to whatever the assignment is, and Dave, for the older kids who want to push it a little harder to make it a little more edgy. Right. How do you work with students in those situations?
Well, you go with it. Every year I do this thing with the kids. In fact, we called it this year Unexpected Art. Mm-hmm. So I go to my closet and I find junk, things that I've left, that left over from different projects, golf balls, styrofoam balls, little ornaments, whatever, pieces of paper. I'm a collector of anything that has to do with packaging, all these little pieces of paper that they peanuts and stuff. Yeah. So I take all that stuff and I make piles and I put it on the tables, and the kids, I'll give them like 3 kids to work in a group, and they have to go to each pile. They have so many minutes to go to each pile to collect their stuff and then create something. They have a ball with it. Mm-hmm. They just love, and some of the ideas that they come up with are unreal. I mean, it's just really unreal. This year I did something a little different. I gave each one a theme. Like somebody had to create something pretty. Somebody had to create something that looked like an animal. Somebody had to create something that looked like it was, alien. The ideas that they came up with were great. It was just amazing. So you go with it. You just let them go with it. Mm-hmm. It gives them a chance to do their thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes. You have to facilitate it, and then just let them go and go with it, and it's amazing. With me, I bring in my professional work, and I have older students and I have more serious students, and they're very competitive in art. It might as well be a baseball player or a football player in my class, and they all want to do the best artwork in the class. And when I bring in my work, in 2 years, they're doing work that resembles my work.
Really?
And the teachers can't tell the difference a lot of times. So when I bring in that, it really sets the bar high, as opposed to them not seeing professional work in a classroom. And I think the work would fall a little bit short of what they do, because the students really, really, really they surpass anything that I could ask for them. And they go on to college in major, they get into major schools for art, and it's amazing. So that's when I feel good.
I'm always really impressed by particularly young people who are driven in the arts. I think there's something special. I have a very good friend who is an outstanding artist in his teen years, and almost to the age of 30, he was very dedicated to it, and then kind of just lost the will to do it. Didn't have the success he had hoped for in the art world, and kind of turned his back on it a little bit. And it's bothered me ever since. He's happy. He's got a nice desk job somewhere, but I miss seeing those really weird pieces of art he would bring out from time to time. And I always tell people that even if it's not something that you turn into a career, or perhaps it won't even turn into the career you imagined, it's something you always got to do. I was out at midnight actually on Saturday night taking photographs of just kind of cool night photos of a bunch of our churches. And it was in the middle of a rainstorm. I was like, I literally had nothing else to do that night. I'm going to go out and I'm going to take pictures of these churches. And I shot a couple hundred photographs. 2 of them I liked. 2 of them I'm going to use. I'll go out there another time, some other time. But I always tell people, keep at it, and not everything is going to be a superstar piece. In the photography world, in the NFL, the usual math to get a good photograph is you got to take 200 photographs to get one good sports photo, which is a benefit now that's in the digital world, because I can shoot 1,000 photographs and get a lot of good stuff, as opposed to when it was film and very, very expensive.
Yeah.
But I always try to encourage as many people as, and I get sometimes when I'll ask Jack to do something and my son, he'll be less interested. I will say I get visibly bummed.
I had my professor at Rowan, Gloucester State, when I started there, and he said you got to do 100 bad paintings before you start doing any good paintings.
That's true.
So.
Something you had mentioned earlier, Grace, about stream and STEM and how art influences can influence science and vice versa. I worked for a group, a special interest group by the name of SIGGRAPH, and it was essentially it was a computer animation festival that was held each year. It was about 20,000 attendees, but the people who submitted to it were from across the spectrum. In-house artists, personal artists, people working at universities, but also Pixar and Marvel and Sony and Disney, all the major computer graphics groups. But also NASA and MIT. And the NASA guys were always the ones that blew me away because they had to do these incredible renderings of these beautiful parts of space that either satellites had picked up on. But whatever they did, they needed artists, pure artists, to help with translating the data into something that the human eye could really perceive accurately. And so I'd see these things, and most of the times they were all technical pieces most people wouldn't see. Although I highly recommend following all of NASA's social media. NASA's social media is now filled with this kinds of imagery of computer graphics that are as good as things you would see in a Disney movie or a Marvel movie, and they're all based on actuality, not fantasy. So yeah, I mean, if you think of art in that terminology, you can find an art job almost anywhere nowadays. Even car manufacturers are still using professional modelers to create cars.
Yeah, they carve them out of clay.
Yeah, still to this day
before they even do anything.
Yeah, but
one of the things you made me remember. Every year, I go to the theater with my family twice a year, and one of the things. You talk about art that went from one to another. SpongeBob SquarePants the musical. It was there is a musical, and it went from, and I didn't realize it. It originally was created 20 years ago by a marine biologist who came up with the idea of a sponge, like a sea sponge. It looks like a dish sponge with a starfish as a friend and a squid neighbor, and he works with the crab, and it was a cartoon that they translated into a Broadway show. It's remarkable.
Tony nominated one.
Yeah,
and actually, I think it won for set design. And it had I saw it on the Tony Awards. It had some freaky set design.
Yeah, it's remarkable. They could translate this cartoon. It was kids, but also it could reach adults, and they made it into this. I thought it was effective. I'm not that big a SpongeBob aficionado, but I know enough to. And so, Grace, this gets me. You also work with the theater, and that was one. The first thing I thought of when I left. Schools are going to put this on now, like elementary schools. So
yeah, probably. Sure.
So how long have you been doing the theater at St. Mary's?
I guess since I guess the past 10 years I've worked the theater there. I've been in theater for about 30 years, and in adult theater. But then there was the need for someone to take over at St. Mary's, so I jumped at the opportunity because I loved it. But the really great thing about it is, like I said earlier, we are able now to, based on the productions that we are going to do, we tie it into the Science Expo. Yeah. So one year we did do a whole thing on space. And it was we did the show Aladdin, so it was flying, cool. And so it was space. Last year we did Peter Pan. And so everything was movement. Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing how you can begin to work with another teacher. And that's key, too. You have to have those teachers that are willing to have the open-mindedness to work with you and to come up with ideas with you. It's so important. And I love that about our school. It's that kind of an environment. The principal is open to most suggestions that we come up with. I mean, he's very supportive, and all the departments we integrate into each other. It's a great environment. It really is.
And I think we're underselling how great your performance is. It's received rave reviews, even from the Bishop of Camden. Oh, yeah. Bishop Dennis Sullivan was blown away. I don't think it was this. I think it was one from a year before that he attended, and he couldn't believe. He couldn't believe it was an elementary school musical because it was so professionally done, and the kids were so well done. I've often said that that you can put quality into an elementary setting.
Oh, yes.
You know, if you have people who know what they're doing, like as you do with 30 years of experience, and kids who are really committed to it, and a staff that's really committed to it, you can actually create really amazing performances. It doesn't have to be what we all think of as a elementary school recital.
I think the key is that, when I work with the children, I treat them like young adults. I don't look at them like they're incapable, because I know that my kids can do. I raise that bar, and they can reach that bar, and that's the most important thing I feel with children in any area. I think it's just really important, and they do. They surprise me sometimes. I mean, their dedication to a program, and it's not easy. I mean, these programs are they're strenuous. They have to make rehearsals. I mean, there's a lot that goes on. Parents have to be involved. And it's so important. People don't realize that it's not just one or two areas. It's the whole thing. Everybody has to be on board with you.
Do you want to say anything nice about your principals? He's sitting over there.
I have a great principal. Yeah. I do. I mean, we're so fortunate.
He just snuck in the back door.
We have a great principal. Steve Hogan is the best principal ever. Yes, he is.
And I can't pass on that back.
No, you've got another good one. That's a good.
He always backs everything that we do with art.
Yeah. And as someone who was always in the Gloucester Catholic play, I've always where my art I may not be able to draw, and I may not be able to paint, I may not be able to sculpt. Whatever acting chops I got came from being in the Gloucester Catholic plays and being fearless. My most notable role still to this day is the back end of a dancing cow. So
you told me that story.
Yeah,
that was...
Gypsy from the play or the musical Gypsy. Yeah.
We're just going to leave that right there.
We really should, because there's more to the story, but it's not good for podcast.
And it was great. I did 6th grade. I did summer theater at a local Cherry Hill East High School, which was fun. And then I auditioned in high school, didn't get it. But last year I actually got an opportunity. Mater Ecclesiae Church in Berlin does a dinner theater. And the year before I did the sound for the play. And last year I was on stage, or earlier this year I was on stage. So I'm hoping to do it again this year. It was just something that, I'm a fan of the arts, but it just was nice to work a muscle that it was, and I worked with people younger than me, older than me, really all ages. So it was, and so you do some of that, the community theater, Grace? Or?
Yeah, I do. Well, every year we have a group of people that do the Passion Play, and
cool.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. They do a great job, and I've worked with. I have a group of women that I work with. We've put on Nonsense 1, Nonsense 2, Nuncrackers. So we've done, you name it, we've done it. And then when I was in theater, I did a lot of big shows in theater. I was fortunate enough to work with Stephen Schwartz.
Yeah.
I worked on Wicked. So I love theater. I really do. I love theater, and I love art. Anything to do with art, I love it.
And I tell people all the time that it's the kind of thing, it doesn't matter what your level is. You may not be a Dave Sipple who's being commissioned by the Phillies and the Eagles or the Diocese or gallery in Soho, but all of us have an opportunity to do something artistic, and it can be just for our own personal joy. I have the benefit of a newspaper that I was guaranteed to publish my photos if I wanted to, but I always leave it up to the managing editor. It's like, here's my photographs, use whatever you want, because I can't, honestly, I can't tell what's good. Very rarely can I tell what's good. So I let other people tell me what's good, and I leave it at that. But or perhaps none of it is good, but I always like to at least create something, do something. It's in all of us. I mean, Dave, you're the one that said it. I mean, when God created us, He put all these abilities within us, and it may not make us $1 million, but it may put a smile on somebody's face.
Well, everybody has their gift.
Yeah,
it's finding it.
Yeah, mine is still not sculpture though. Not sculpture.
So, let's this event that's going on now, the Art on the Mall. Just speak to you. When did you first hear about this initiative that was going on?
Well, Mary Beth, about 3 years ago at St. Mary's, we started a program called CAB Fair, Creative Arts and Beyond. And Mary Beth Peabody came to one of the events. And what we did was we invited the diocesan elementary schools, middle schools, to come and either do performing art, literary art, or visual art. And they brought their pieces with them, and they performed or did whatever. And at that time, they were also given master classes. It was an all-day event. And she really liked it. She thought it was a great idea, and she really tried to promote it through the diocese. So at the end of the school year this year, she said to me, would you be interested in possibly getting a group of other artists together and coming and displaying the work, the artwork, the student artwork, in some of the diocesan churches? And I said, sure, So this was in June. And I'm thinking, we don't have much time. So we both thought maybe we're just being a little too aggressive, and maybe this would be something for, next year or whatever. Well, she worked at it, and within a week, I think we had the 15 schools. And I even said to her, I said, why don't we invite the high schools as well? Because it would be a really diverse art show. So that's what we did. That's what she did. And we came down with the 30 pieces of art. We put it on display, and we're here. And so, hopefully it's going to, I'm hoping it's going to grow into, bringing in the performing arts as well. I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, it's, we actually, this has been discussed at the diocesan level for a little while, figuring out how we can create more diocesan-wide events that really pull together all the schools together. Oftentimes our schools, you get the impression they're sort of siloed on their own little niche areas, but in reality, we're all part of a much larger entity that spans across South Jersey. There are 36 of these schools between high schools and elementary schools. And they all do such great work, and we knew that we had a lot of talented art teachers, and we've seen Mary Beth has been blown away repeatedly going into the schools, because Mary Beth Peabody is the communications person for the Office of Schools in the diocese, and so she visits the schools on a regular basis and would see this artwork hanging on the walls and just be amazed by it. So that became sort of her focal point as she was moving along as to how to promote these. So we decided on doing this one in the summertime, and then we're thinking about trying to make one in the fall. And we want to put them in public places where people can just walk in and sort of experience it. And we were fortunate, most of in Cape May, certainly our church is right on a main drag. It's right on particularly the Washington Mall, which is this great walking mall in Cape May if you've never been there before. And the church here is this gorgeous, I always say it's the prettiest church in the diocese, and it always gets a ton of foot traffic of just people coming in to see the sanctuary and the stained glass. So the idea was to put it on the floor underneath of it with a sign pointing down, and it's been getting a lot of great traffic. One of the other ideas we're putting together is creating a film festival, a short film festival of having the students make 4 to 8 minute films. I used to do that. It's a competition called the 48-Hour Film Project, where you're given a line of dialogue, a character, and a genre, and 48 hours to make a video, soup to nuts video with music and everything. Might be a bit much to ask from our high schoolers, but I would do a 7-day version of that and give them time to work on it. And then the best part was we always had a premiere for all the videos, all the movies that were made like a week later. And it was great. You'd have hundreds of people coming out just to see, in the case of me and my friends, what these idiots had put together to put out. But it was great. And I ended up running the film festival for 2 years in Philadelphia, and it was great. It was the 12 years I worked on that, 10 as a competitor and 2 as a city producer, was some of the most fun years of my life. But once again, I often refer to myself. What is this? We'll say this is the 75th time I've made this reference. I'm a jaded PR guy. I take joy in nothing. That is one of those things. The art stuff is the stuff where I always get really excited, and that's why I was so happy when this happened. I'm so happy when you guys agreed to be on the podcast. And I got my chance to walk through it just recently, and the artwork is as good as advertised. Right, Pete?
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So look
for other people to see this.
Yeah, and so this will be running until August 16th. So we hope people will come down if you're going to be in the Cape May area. I've already heard from a few people that I know from around the diocese who were vacationing down here, who came down and saw it and were very impressed. So if you're going to be down in this area, I highly recommend it. And by all means, take a look at the church and enjoy the food and festivities in Cape May, one of my favorite towns in South Jersey.
The church doors are open all day long.
Yeah,
So
and buy a raffle ticket for the car too. You might win a car out of it. So The church every year. The church is raffling off a car.
Well, what car? What kind of car is it?
I don't know. I've been taking raffles for 20 years and I haven't won any of them. But it's going to happen this year though.
Well,
it's usually a Mercedes.
Sounds good.
I don't know what's out there right now.
Okay, right. Is it right outside?
It's right outside the door. I'm actually surprised you missed it. You practically trip over it walking into the church.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
But of course, the art show. So that sounds.
So as we wrap up, do you have any last pieces of advice for anybody who works with kids or who's thinking about doing something artistic but never had the gumption to do it?
Just draw every day, but I really look forward to seeing this show grow. So next year and beyond. But to draw every day.
That's great. And Grace?
I just think we should let kids be kids. Let them draw out of the box. Let them draw out of the lines. It's fine. And
Finally.
Just let them.
Now I learned.
Let them be kids. That's it.
40 years later, and I'm told I can finally draw outside the lines. How about you, Pete?
Any advice for artists?
Yeah.
Well, I would say, well, you put me on the spot there, Mike. I think it's just quiet your mind. Get away from. Give yourself permission to be bored, because that's where. For me at least, if I'm sitting quietly in a chair instead of listening to music or watching Netflix or on my phone, if I just sit there, inspiration can hit. So that's what I think. Give yourself permission to be bored, and things can happen. Good things can happen.
I would agree. I would take all those, and I'm sort of in Dave's camp. Just create something. Doesn't matter what it is. Just try. Don't be afraid to try.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks you for our guests for joining us today. This was great.
Dave, Grace, thank you.
Pete, thank you for giving me a reason to come down to the shore. That's actually my first trip to the shore all summer, so
wow.
I was able to do it for work.
Well, thanks for sending this up too, Mike. This has been great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the art show, and come on down to Cape May, Washington Street Mall, right?
That's right.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you, everybody.